Welcome to Rockhampton with Nyree the podcast that celebrates the people, places, and stories that make Rocky and the wider central Queensland community extraordinary. I firmly believe we're sitting on a golden goose in this region, and I love meeting the people who are doing the quiet work behind the scenes to keep the community thriving. They run our sports clubs, they organise our charities, they support the people who are lost in the system, and they volunteer their time so generously. And I feel like the luckiest person in the world when someone shares their story with me privately. And now I'm privileged to bring their stories and achievements to you, the listeners of Rockhampton with Nyree Johnson. Sometimes they wonder why they were asked, thinking that what they're doing and what they've done is not that big of a deal. And I can hand on heart tell you that it absolutely is. Other times, my guests are ecstatic to be asked and they look forward to sharing a piece of their Rocky and Central Queensland story. Thank you for listening in. I truly appreciate you being here. Today's guest is Charlene McKenzie. Now, Charlene wears a couple of hats, probably more than a couple around Rocky. A bit of a serial volunteer at different events, gets involved in quite a few things, has an extremely important job at a local school where she helps young teenage children navigate the world of work and trades and university and a bit of career guidance as a pathways officer. But most specifically, Charlene is here today to talk to us about the Capricorn Entrepreneurs Toastmasters community. For anyone who's not aware, Toastmasters is a worldwide organisation that helps to build people's confidence when it comes to speaking and speaking in public specifically. So we're going to talk to Charlene today a little bit about her story, her journey, her life, and how Toastmasters has been quite influential. And you're also currently acting in the vice president role for that local group. So much happening for you in your world. Thank you for joining me.
That's okay. Thank you for sharing some time today with yourself and your listeners. I'm really excited to be here.
Very excited to have you. I do follow the Capricorn Entrepreneurs Toastmasters on Facebook in particular. I like to see the achievements that everybody has that gets publicised. I love watching other people succeed and kick goals. So I really love your social media presence. So keep doing that well.
No, well, I can't claim credit for that. That would be our PR person.
Of course, yes. Yeah, it takes lots of people to make these groups work, hey? But before we really get stuck into it, I am curious to know if you could be an expert at anything at all in the world, what would it be and why?
I love listening to your guests' answers to this question. And I thought I had my answer and I've done a complete 180. I thought my answer, given that I'm here to talk about Toastmasters, was going to be public speaking and communication. Photography was another one that came to mind that I just love to, you know how photos never do it justice, right? I'd really like to be able to take better photos.
Yep.
But I have decided it's going to be AI. And there's a reason for it being AI and not the other things. And that's with AI, I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball already. Like I have not kept up with this. I've not developed my skill set in it enough. And it's growing so fast. It's changing so quickly that I'm like, if I'm behind now, how do I ever catch up and get across this and get with it? And the reason that I haven't made it those other things is because I think you miss out on so much in that learning journey. In that having a go at something and going, oh, that didn't work. That's a bit of a flop. On, just being that little bit better the next time you try, on getting that feedback and really, giving it that little bit, we talk about that 1% better every day, right? And just that continuous improvement and learning. And I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson that learning is a journey, not a destination. There's something really human about going on that learning journey and getting better at something and the sense of achievement that we get when I nailed it. Like I was doing terribly. I've gotten that little bit better and I've nailed it. So yeah, I think when you become an instant expert in something, you would lose something from the journey.
That is a very good point. And I feel like, when you do learn something new, it is extremely frustrating and it takes a heck of a lot of determination to keep pushing through and sitting with that discomfort and learning and, but then you get to the other side and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
So I'm good now. I'm here. I've got this. I know what I'm doing. Let's go learn something else.
Yeah. So I think there's so much to be said for that process of learning. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Charlene. What sort of,
journey have you had in life? Have you had key people, key moments, key events that have happened across the course of your life that really stand out to essentially shape who Charlene is today?
Something that really shaped who I am. I grew up on a farm until kind of about the end of primary school. So you learn to be very good at being okay in your own company when you grow up on a farm with two brothers and you're always outvoted on everything that happens in the household. So I think there's that sense of just being okay with being with myself and being in my own company. I was always a voracious reader. My poor mum had twin brothers younger than me, and she'd be trying to feed them, and I'd be there with a book in front of her, trying to follow along the words with my finger to read the book. And I still read. I try to read every day, and it's mostly nonfiction now. And it's a constant source of overwhelm and stress in my life that I can't possibly read all the books about all the things. There's just too many. And deciding which one I am and aren't going to read. I think growing up, my mum was a huge influence on, that referenced me as a bit of a serial volunteer. And I blame my mum squarely for that one. She was always the one that was on the committee, running the thing, helping the thing. I grew up in the QCW, which is very much a service organisation. It is about more than the scones. They do a lot of community work. And I think that's just the example that was set right from the very start. And that's something that's really become ingrained and come out as an adult. That willingness to jump in and get the things that need to be done behind the scenes done.
That is a very common theme with people who are serial volunteers. They've had those one or two people that have dragged them along to every event and have, chipped in and done something. So, what a special mum you had.
Yeah, well, still have.
Still have, yes, sorry.
No, she's still the secretary of the Rural Fire Brigade and doing this and doing the other. And yeah.
No, that's fantastic. So what inspired this journey of, heading into the Capricorn Entrepreneurs Toastmasters group? So again, you've been involved in lots of different groups. You've taken on roles in different capacities, probably from everything from secretary to vice president to treasurer to PR person maybe, who knows. But what specifically about the Toastmasters, what that journey has looked like for you to join them?
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I remember years ago someone talking about it and kind of being intrigued, and at the time just not really having the capacity to investigate it and spend time doing it at that point in time. And I guess it's just one of those things that's always been in the back of the mind. Like one day, the good old one day, I'll go to Toastmasters and see what it's like. And, I've had some changes in life recently. My children are now independent and off doing their own things. And I was sitting down one day, and when I looked at all my reasons for not going to Toastmasters, I think they were more excuses dressed up as reasons. And I just figured, why not? Let's just go and see what it's all about. I've done public speaking on and off a lot in my life. I was probably about 10 when Mum signed me up to go in the Stedford in the speaking competition. No idea why she did that. I was the only kid in high school doing it. I think she just thought it would be a great life skill and a great opportunity to try something a bit different. I've always, off and on done roles where there is a little bit of public speaking involved and had that in my life. So to be, have that environment to keep practicing that and get better at that was something that definitely appealed. Went along to a meeting, and as they say, the rest is history. Here we are.
And how often do they have those catch-ups or those meetings?
Yeah. So with Toastmasters, the local groups, we all work on a fortnightly basis. There's a group in Yeppoon Toastmasters, who meet on every second Monday evening. Here in Rockhampton, we have Boomerang Rockhampton Toastmasters, who meet every second Tuesday evening. And Entrepreneurs Capricorn, we're a little bit different. We meet on a Friday morning. So you can come in, get it done, and head off to work for the day and just have that really nice invigoration into the end of the week. It's on a Friday morning, get the end of the week and that momentum into the weekend, which is really, really awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. And what sort of things do you do at these Toastmasters fortnightly meetings? I'm guessing it's a great place to practice if you've got something coming up or get advice or guidance from other people. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Feedback is really important to everything we do at Toastmasters. Anytime you speak, you will receive feedback. In a standard meeting, we'll all introduce ourselves, maybe share a bit of a thought or a quote. We'll have what's called table topics, which is impromptu speaking, which some people love. Some people take some time to get over the nerves with that one, but that's the opportunity to practice that every fortnight. And that someone will announce a topic, then announce a name and we pop up, and the aim is to speak to 1 to 2 minutes on that topic. So great fun and a really great practice. And then there'll be prepared speeches where someone has prepared a speech that they want to give, and there's learning in the background. We call it Pathways, which is our learning program in the background, and you can work through projects through that. Or you might be doing something that you're practicing something for work or for something that you have coming up. We have members who are giving speeches at conferences where they may practice part of that as well, and they build that into using this as a resource to help them with that as well.
And it's not it's a very well-known fact that most people are fearful of public speaking.
Yeah.
They are fearful of speaking on a camera, on a podcast. So on stage with a microphone or that impromptu, tell us your name and what you're about. I do know that you attend a couple of events around Rocky, and I do as well. And at some of those events, they do impromptu, tell us about yourself and your name and where you come from or where you're working, or if that whatever's relevant. And the amount of people that are not comfortable with that, they still do it because we're grown-ups and we have to do things that make us uncomfortable sometimes. But I am guessing anyone who goes to Toastmasters probably wouldn't be fearful of those sorts of moments.
No, because you get that opportunity to just do it so often. And when we talk about, Toastmasters being about public speaking and leadership, public speaking, a lot of people see that and they think, being on a stage at a conference, giving the keynote in front of hundreds of people. And for some of our members, absolutely, that is something they're working towards. We have a member who's a PhD candidate at the moment. He's going to be speaking at a conference in Scotland later this year. You've had Celeste Cleary on your podcast, who is doing some conference speaking. So absolutely, that is what they're aiming for. But then we have people who just want to be comfortable at a networking event or need to give a speech at a wedding that's coming up. That's a really popular one as well. University lecturers who want more confidence to work with smaller groups and do more facilitation style things with smaller groups. You'd be amazed the number of teachers and people who you think, they speak in front of people for a living, but talk to any teacher, and having to address a room of colleagues or parents is very different to talking to your grade fives for the day. So people come to Toastmasters for a whole variety of reasons of what they want to get out of it. And that's the great thing, is that it kind of can be whatever you want it to be and whatever you need it to be and whatever you need to get out of it. And so we're very big about making sure that it's meeting your professional and personal development goals and what you're here to aim for.
No, that's fantastic. And you mentioned there is a Learning Pathways program in behind the scenes. So you are the vice president of this local group, specifically with regards to education. So what does that look like? What do you mean education?
So in the background of Toastmasters, we have what we call pathways. And there's 6 different pathways to choose from, depending on what you're wanting to focus on. Are you wanting to focus on having more humor in your speeches? Are you wanting to focus on leadership? Are you wanting to focus on motivational strategies? So you would pick the pathway that most suits what you're aiming to get. And then it will work you through a series of projects to help develop your skills as you move through. So you'll start with what we call an icebreaker, which is really just a speech about yourself, which you would think would be the easiest topic to speak on, but not always.
No, it's not.
So you start with your icebreaker, and then there's speeches that are looking at how are you using your vocal variety, how are you using your body language. We do a speech with a purpose, a speech where you have the opportunity to do a speech twice after getting feedback about it for that improvement. And then there'll be things like your communication style, your leadership style, active listening, projects around all those sorts of things. And then it really starts getting much more specific from then on into the pathway that you're doing. There's levels within the pathway, so you're kind of always achieving goals. As you get to the higher levels, you also start delivering educational sessions, which is another different skill again. So it really is that well-rounded communication skills. And then, of course, there's the leadership side of it. And that can be taking on a role like Vice President Education, which is, I think, the best role within Toastmasters, because you get to work really one-on-one with all the members about what their goals are and how, as a club, we can support them to achieve those. So I think it's the best role. Our VP PR person is probably like, well, I'm the one that got the compliment about the Facebook. And it's a case of you wanting a role that's really playing to your strengths, Or are you
Mm.
wanting a role that's really something that you want to work on and develop, and you feel
Mm.
you don't have those strengths, so you want to work on? I know we have a member who's looking at stepping up into a leadership role at our next elections, because down the track there's a promotion at work they would like to apply for, and having
Mm.
that leadership experience is something they feel will definitely help them on that journey and hopefully be successful in gaining that position in due course.
I think that's fantastic. Like between the supportive environment, the fortnightly check-ins, the behind the scenes pathways, self-paced type learning, it's a really supportive environment in a volunteer capacity to level up your professional development skills. And not only does it benefit you in your paid employment, but it will benefit you in any aspect of your life that needs this helping hand.
Absolutely. And I say often, Rocky's big enough that we have everything. We have cultural things. We have bands and a Stedford and music groups, and we have service organisations. We have QCWA and Zonta, and we have youth organisations like Scouts that you're involved in, and cadets and those things. Interest groups, women's sheds, men's shed. Sometimes I think that professional development is still a little bit lacking, and we
Mm.
tend to need to travel away for that a lot. And you can go,
Mm.
we've all been there. We've been away for a one-day conference or a course. You come back all enthusiastic and excited about it, and a month later, it's back to business as usual anyway. It's all gone out the window.
Mhm.
So that
Mm.
fortnightly repetition of just working on things, but getting that little bit better, constantly working on it, I think it has a real value and a real place. And
Mm.
it's a great resource that we are lucky to have not just one, but, 3 options here in between Rockhampton and Boone.
Yeah, absolutely. And does it cost money to become a member? What does that look like for people?
Yeah, it does. It's pretty cost effective though.
Mm.
Usually about $100 a half year, depending on the
Mhm.
exchange rate, because it is an international organisation. Some clubs will be a little bit less, a little bit more. So
Mhm.
really quite cost effective if you compare that to going and doing, flying to Brisbane for a conference, or, even doing
Mm.
any other sort of training. It is really cost effective. We also have from time to time weekend courses. So we might
Mhm.
have as 2 Saturdays a fortnight apart or a month apart, where we run like a comprehensive get started type program for someone
Mhm.
who maybe doesn't want to commit to the fortnightly, or as a starting point to then launch into the fortnightly. So there are different options on how to access that Toastmasters benefits as well. And I often
Mm.
say it's a bit like as a mum, we might feed the kids lasagna or spaghetti bolognese, supposedly because it's their favorite, when actually it's because we know we've shoved a whole heap of veggies in there, right? We've eaten all the veggies.
Yes.
That's a great way of thinking of Toastmasters, because you work on so many skills. There's active
Mm.
listening, there's researching, there's organizing your thoughts and articulating your thoughts, there's giving feedback, there's receiving feedback. And it's all
Mhm.
wrapped up in this really supportive community where you get that regular practice and just a great group of people who really help you on your journey.
No, that is fantastic. And I can imagine, because I know a handful of the people who are involved in the Entrepreneurs Toastmasters group, I couldn't imagine a more supportive environment to walk into if that's exactly what you were looking for. So yeah, I think you've summed it up so well. And of course, you've spoken a lot about Rocky and the Capricorn Coast and how the clubs span our region. What does living in Rocky specifically mean to you? Like, what is our community? What has it done for you, or what have you done for it? Like, what does Rocky mean to you?
Yeah, and I've pretty much always lived in regional areas, at times even what
Mm.
you would classify as remote. And it's a very different feeling when you're living in a regional area, because there's very much a sense of, if something's going to happen, someone has to do it. And guess what? You're someone. So
Mhm.
here you go. Here's some
Mhm.
stuff. Off you go and do it. If it's going to happen, make it happen, which I think is
Yes.
something that is really just in the DNA of these sorts of regional communities. I've
Mhm.
only lived in Rocky for about 2 decades, so I'm not quite
Mhm.
sure I classify as a local yet, Nyree. Whether this will be somewhere that I end up living long term, I don't know. Looks like my eldest is perhaps possibly settling down here, so maybe. But if you're living in a community, why wouldn't you want to make that community better for your family and
Mm.
the people that you know? Why wouldn't you want to contribute to that community and make sure that there's opportunities for people, and, make sure that things are happening? And, as a human, why wouldn't you want to do that for other humans? Why wouldn't you want to,
Mm.
make life better for everyone. I'm not going to be able to credit it off the top of my head, but that saying, a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle,
Yes,
right? And
that's exactly right.
if you're going to live somewhere, why wouldn't you want to make it the best community to live in that you can? That's, I guess, kind of how I look at it a little bit. And Rocky, I sort of mentioned before, it is that big enough to have everything, but small enough that you still know the people. You still run into the
Yes.
people. You still meet someone through group A, and you stand there for 10 minutes trying to figure out where you've met each other before. Or you meet someone and you work out that it's their uncle's best friend's neighbor that you do something else with.
Yes.
There really is that sense of connection in Rockhampton.
Yes.
I don't think 6 degrees of connection applies in Rockhampton. I think it's much smaller than that.
It's very small.
So you do get that someone taps you on the shoulder like, hey, how about we do this? Or how about, help out with this? And I don't think you can be particularly involved in an organization without at some point someone saying to you, hey, come on, we need a hand for someone to come and do this. What about it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I can imagine the work that you do as a guidance, as I called it before we hit record, guidance officer person, like you're a pathways officer. So you're helping young people navigate university, TAFE, trades, work experience, like at that high school level. And I can imagine your degrees of separation is even smaller because you've got young people that are becoming young adults and their parents and their families and the workplaces that they go out into. And it's really great and I imagine so many teachers and people in your position as support staff have that same approach where, why wouldn't you want to make the most of this community? Because this is where we live, this is where we play, it's where we work, it's where we shop, it's where we socialize. So you make an excellent point.
Yeah.
With regards to, of course, you've got older children that are independent now. You've
What
had a
kind
whole
of
life of
independent?
experience.
They still hit you up for money, Nyree. I hate to tell you as yours are getting
I do
a little
know.
bit behind mine.
Yes, 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 I do know that. And you're like, you have a job, you have savings. Like, let's be a little bit careful with where we're spending money at the moment. But that's a story for another day. I completely understand. But when you've got a whole lifetime of experience and you're only halfway through, really. In all of that lifetime that you've had so far, what would be either end of the scale, either your biggest challenge or your proudest moment, something that's really defined your journey and your path, and maybe it's made you pivot, maybe it's taught you a lesson. Like, what's the biggest thing that comes to your mind?
I think it's probably more a theme throughout. Letting go of having to be perfect. Letting go of everything having to be the best. And if we do something, it has to be absolutely amazing and perfect. And, I'm not going to ask Nyree for 5 takes. We're just going to do it. And it is what it is because it's a one-on-one conversation, right?
Yes.
Just getting to that point of, just having that vulnerability to be, okay, I'm just going to have a go at this and see where it takes me.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think what's common in the conversations on the podcast is sometimes there is one key defining moment that does change the course of someone's life. And I know there's a big one for myself, which maybe I'll talk about one day on the podcast. But, in most cases, it's lots of little moments across time that really craft who you are and shape your future journey because you learn every day. It doesn't just stop when you stop reading a book. And I can absolutely resonate with there are too many books. Like, I cannot read all these books and I need these books. I like to listen to them now, though, rather than read them. Yes, I can consume more.
I don't do well with, listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't do well with audiobooks, but it's just I think it's just really a DNA level thing with me, that love of learning and that willingness to just jump in and do things. And to the point of that sometimes you do have to be conscious of when to say no as well, because it can lead to that overwhelm. And I am stepping down from another role at the moment because, it did kind of just become everything started loading. I mean, you take it on because somebody has to do it and it has to get done. So, and I got to a point where I'm actually starting to resent this. So it's having the ability to step back and go, this is no longer working for me. This is no longer serving me. And therefore, I'm no longer serving this organization well in the way that I should be. So it's time to hand those reins over to someone else and support someone else in that transition and move through that. So knowing when to step away as well and when to say no is definitely a learning process and a skill, and something else I'm involved in. I can see that happening to someone else at the moment. They're getting to that point of everything's on me. I don't want it all on me. I need some support here. So it's trying to be that person that says, hey guys, we need to take some of this load. We need to share some of this. But in the same sentence, it's not me.
Yes.
So I'm just going to be a total hypocrite here and say someone needs to take it off her plate, but not me.
Yes.
But, that's part of the journey that we go through as well, I think, too, is being intentional. I think that's one of my words of the year, is being intentional with my time, intentional with my energy, intentional with what I say yes to, intentional with what I say no to. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. That is fantastic advice. So now that we've already extracted so much of it out of you, though, if you could give some advice, and I imagine you do this in your day job almost every day, if you could give some advice to the next generation and the younger children coming through after us as they start to find their feet in the world post-school, what would it be?
Never stop learning. Get out of your comfort zone. Be willing to accept feedback. And I got some just the other week. I was Toastmaster of our meeting, which is the chair of the meeting of the day. And someone at the end said, you're really starting to get a nice flow to the meetings when you're Toastmaster. And immediately my brain took that as a criticism that I haven't in the past.
Right.
And it's like, what do you mean? Was it the meeting's not good when I was Toastmaster previously? Like, what are you trying to say? And so it's a very deliberate take a step back and go, okay, what is this reaction? Where's it coming from? Why am I having it? How can I reframe this? And the reframe is obviously I've gotten better. Someone's actually giving me a compliment that I've gotten better. So, learning to take that side of it. But I say just try things. I know at school the students must think I'm a broken record about work experience, but you have to just get out and just try things. And you'll try something and go, that's not for me. Some people will come to Toastmasters and go, that's not for me. And some people will come to Toastmasters or do something else and they'll give it a few goes and come into it. Others will love it from the second, But the more things you try, the more chance you have of finding that one thing that really lights your fire. So for young people, I would say just try things. Try things. Go and experiment. Go and have failures. Go and decide that things aren't what you like, but just go and try things. Because there's so many opportunities for kids these days. But I think that's sometimes part of the trick, is that there's so many opportunities. So how do I weed through these? How do I decide,
Yes.
And it really is just about getting out and experimenting with it and just having a go. And that doesn't stop when we're a teenager. It's something that we do right throughout life, is just give things a go. Go try something new. Be a beginner at something.
Yes.
Go and have a failure. Go and learn something. Go and see if it's for you. But don't know if you don't go and try. And the more things you try, the more chances you have of finding something that really is something you turn into being passionate about.
And I think that, what you said about the letting go of perfectionism matches quite well with that advice, because if you go into something new and you want to learn something new and you are completely okay with not getting it right from the start, and, you're prepared to be frustrated and annoyed as you learn something new because you don't quite know how to do it yet, that just goes together so beautifully. Very, very good advice. With your, working at the school and your volunteer commitments, you obviously do a little bit more than the average person. Not that what the average person does is not enough. It's, you're really involved in stuff. I've seen you work the bar at the Capras. I've, seen you volunteer at a million different organizations and causes and events. What is that drive? What is the thing that gets Charlene up every day and goes, you know what, we're going to have another Ripper Day and we're going to serve this community and I'm going to help these young kids with their career pathways?
I think helping the young people with their career pathways, that is so rewarding in itself. And sometimes you don't even hear the stories back. My 20-year-old ran into someone from that he went to school with the other day, and he came back and he was like, "Oh, he couldn't speak well enough about you, and that you're the person who got him through school. He probably wouldn't have even finished school if you hadn't have got him into the training and the courses and the work experience and then the job. And now he's got this amazing job." And so sometimes you don't even necessarily see it in the moment, and I guess you've just got to have some of that faith that you're chipping away in the background and that you are making a difference to these young people's lives, and that you are having an influence, and there are outcomes that are coming for them.
Yes.
So that's, I guess, that side of things is, you can really see you're having a direct impact on making something for them. The community stuff, I think too, some of it is it gets me out of the house, it's social, learning new skills, and I get that probably comes back to that love of learning as well. If I can be learning something in something I'm doing while I'm volunteering, and if you're not, then possibly that's not the exact role for you. But I'm also looking at stepping up to a different role within Toastmasters potentially come July, and that will be more of a leadership role. So really developing skills there and learning and growing. And it's Mum's fault. That was the example that was set. And
that's
and I think
gold.
because I have always lived in regional areas too. I think when you live in the city, it's very easy to just, there's thousands of other people that can do this. Why would it be me? And you can feel a little bit disengaged from that. But when you're in a regional area, it really is like, this isn't going to happen unless someone puts their hand forward and does it. So you get on with it and do what needs doing. Yeah.
Absolutely agree. Well, it has been a pleasure having you on the podcast. I am so glad you agreed to join and tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the Capricorn Entrepreneur Toastmasters group. And if anyone does want any more information, you do have an active Facebook page, which is fantastic. Is that the best way to get in contact?
Yeah, the Facebook page, or you can Google us. You'll find our website. There's a contact number on there as well. Or just pop up at a meeting. That's fine too. Guests are always welcome. You can come along to any Toastmasters meeting as a guest just to come get a feel and see what it's like. We often have people who'll go across a couple of different clubs to see which one is the vibe that just works for them. I guess between Yeppoon and Rockhampton, it is kind of, you've got people in Yeppoon would usually go to the Yeppoon one, and the Rockhampton ones are at those very different times. So it does often come down to which time suits. But we're also a hybrid club at Entrepreneurs Capricorn and Boomerang, I believe Yeppoon as well. So you can join online if, that time works for you, but maybe you go to work early and then you do it and you start your work day, or you have to be somewhere. And for that reason, we have members who have left town who are still members of our club who attend virtually as well. So that's another great option.
That's fantastic. And that's a whole nother skill set for a facilitator of a meeting as well, to navigate both online participants as well as in-person participants. So I can imagine, yes, the skill development is endless.
Yes. All the veggies in the lasagna, Nyree. All the
veggies. I love that. I absolutely love that. So with your Friday catch-ups, when is the next Friday catch-up for the Capricorn Entrepreneurs Toastmasters, and whereabouts do you have them and at what sort of time?
So Entrepreneurs Capricorn, our next meeting will be Friday the 27th of March. We are 6:30 arrivals for being started by 6:45, and that's at Cocoa Brew.
And that's AM?
That is AM. AM. And we're done by 8 a.m, so we can be off to work for the day, finish off our work week strong. Boomerang Toastmasters, theirs would be Tuesday the 7th of April, also at Cocoa Brew, and theirs is a 6:15 p.m. that we jump in. And they also have a dinner break for a bit of a social time as well over dinner during the meeting.
Fantastic. And they're both fortnightly, aren't they? So it's the Tuesday evening or the Friday morning, unless you're on the Capricorn coast, then there's a Yeppoon one.
The Yeppoon one is, sorry, I don't have the date to hand, but it's the opposite week on the Monday. But if you jump on the Facebook page, jump on the website, you'll be able to reach out to someone and confirm those dates and get the exact dates. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. No, that's fantastic. Thank you again for joining me. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you. It's been great to be here.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Rockhampton with Nyree Johnson, proudly brought to you by Marketing Unagency Co., the marketing team who do things very differently and who are determined to make the world of marketing less chaotic and far clearer for small businesses and community groups.